Hi guys, it's Trevor Chalaba here, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. Yes, folks, this is the Blue Day podcast, and for Chelsea fans everywhere, every day is a blue day. I am your host and creator, Keith Lawrence, and joining me this week, we have a special guest. No, it's not our new co-host, Mark Smith, and Milan Laukovic. No, they are both on football duties this weekend, but I am pleased to say, to welcome back to the show, he's one of our old favourites. It is Warren. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you? And it's nice to see you looking so well.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I believe you're referring to my rather hairless head at the moment, as I've gone bald. But through choice, not through nature. But yes, I'm very well, very pleased to be back on the show. A lot of hot topics to talk about in a minute. It's been a little while since I've been on. Obviously, I think the last two times I was on was the last time that Lampard left the club. And the time previous to this was when Abramovich was being forced to sell the club last year. So I believe that's the last two times I was on. A lot has happened since then. There's a lot to talk about with current affairs. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it.
Well, as this weekend Chelsea aren't playing, which is probably thankful for everybody's hearts and minds, we're going to talk about the recent news that's obviously come out, and it's obviously with the Chelsea circus that's going around in terms of finding a new manager for next season. We've obviously got Super Frank in charge until the end of the season. We know he ain't going to get the job long term. But the news that came out for courtesy of Sky Sports, and it's been through other media sources, and that is that there's this short list that's now dwindled down to 3. And the candidates include Mauricio Pochettino, Vincent Kompany, and a mystery guy with apparent links to Chelsea. Whether that's Jose or somebody else, we won't know quite yet. But those are the 3 allegedly in the frame. Nagelsmann announced yesterday that he doesn't want the job. Probably the right thing. And Enrique, who wanted the job, apparently Chelsea did not want. So, Warren, obviously, you've been looking at it from up north, and you've been looking at it from as a fan's point of view. What's your take on the circus surrounding Chelsea Football Club at this moment?
Well, I think that's exactly what it is. It is a bit of a circus, and it's pretty embarrassing. I guess that what has happened is what you would expect to happen, really. You know, a guy or 2 guys, a consortium, a business have come in, whatever, and they've never owned an English sports team, let alone an English football team, let alone the most successful English sports team of the century, which Chelsea are in terms of number of trophies won, and obviously European success and everything. So I think that it was always going to be an extraordinarily difficult transitional period, and mistakes were always going to have been made. I can accept that. I can accept that there's a transitional period. I can accept that. I can accept where we are in the league to a certain point of view, not necessarily like quite as low as we are, but I could understand and accept being lower down in the league than what we've been used to for the last 20 years. And like I say, there was always going to be teething problems, but these problems don't seem like teething problems. They seem like deep-rooted terminal issues within the club. And I think that a lot of that was covered up by Abramovich, because under his stewardship, at the very least, although he couldn't be quite as active and participate as much as he wanted to because of like political reasons in the last number of years of owning the club, he had an infrastructure set up within the club to make sure that it was run properly and make sure it was run correctly, and to make sure that it was running with the sole purpose of Chelsea being successful, rather than Chelsea being a successful business. Abramovich had an infrastructure set up for us to be a successful football club, and the business sort of almost came second. Now, that's not to mean that we wasn't astute in a lot of our business, and we made a lot of money, and we was self-sufficient and stuff like that. It's not to say any of that, but it was just run different. And I think Bohi's come in, and I think he's bitten off a lot more than he realised he had. Not to say that, I'm not going to say he's bitten off more than he can chew at the minute, because it's very early days. But yeah, there just seems to be all of the players that we've bought scream to me Bohi signings. I don't know if any managers had how much. I don't know how much any of the managers, Tuchel and Potter, who are obviously in charge of us during the transfer windows. I'm not sure how much input they had. I liken it to somebody playing a game of Football Manager or FIFA, and their central midfielder isn't playing very well, and he's rated 78, so they go and spend 80 million on some hotshot guy whose rating is 86. And yeah, that works perfectly fine on FIFA and Football Manager. It doesn't necessarily work as well in real life. We've seen that with, do you know what? We saw this 25 years ago with Leeds, when they went out and spent like a lot of money on, people like Rio Ferdinand and Olivier Decourt and Mark Viduka and Kuhl and Bowyer, and they went out and spent a lot of money on players, and it didn't work. They got relegated a few seasons later. So it doesn't always work just throwing loads of money at it. Fulham came up a few years ago and spent 120 million and went straight back down. This time they've come up, and it's not to say that they haven't, made some very. It's not to say they haven't had some very successful business in the transfer market and spent a bit of money, but they're a structured club now, and they have an identity. That's what Chelsea are lacking at the minute. Chelsea are lacking an identity, because in the past, when we've had bad seasons and we've finished 9th or 10th or 5th or 6th or whatever, most of the time we've won an FA Cup or a Champions League or a Europa League or something, because the identity of the club was one that just won things no matter what. That was the identity of our club. We were winners. Whereas now we have no identity. We don't have that. We don't have anything to fall back on. There's still remnants of it about the place. I think the Real Madrid game the other night was a classic example of that. Without we're going to talk about obviously the fact that we don't have a striker and the fact that nobody's playing very well, and you can't. It's harsh to single out single players. I mean, Cucurella's had an awful season, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and I was like, yeah, but has Reece James been that much better when he's been fit? Has Havertz been any better? Has Mount been any better? Has Chilwell been any better? I mean, I must say that our two most consistent performers this season. I know that James and Kante have spent an awful lot of time at injury. Graham Potter never had the opportunity to start N'Golo Kante during his whole reign. So I think that's something that we'll speak more specifically about Tuchel, Potter and Lampard and stuff as the podcast goes on. But, that's something that Graham Potter had work against him quite a lot. The fact that the guy that's been the best in his role for the last probably 8 or 9 years, he never ever got to select him, and it doesn't seem like he was ever allowed to actually go and sign a striker either. So I think that worked against him quite a lot. But yeah, so apart from people that have been out injured, so they're not necessarily, it wouldn't be fair to say they haven't had good seasons because they've spent a lot of time injured, right? So I think that our two best performers this season have been obviously Thiago Silva, like just rock solid. Don't even think we need to say anything more other than just Thiago at the back, no one in attack, as they say. So Thiago, and also I think Kepa has had an excellent season, given how bad. I think because I don't think he's made lots of mistakes. I think that he had a period of time. I think it was just before or just after the World Cup. He had a series of games where he played really, really well. I think it was when Potter first came in, and he was making some brilliant saves. But given the fact that, we've discussed Kepa before, and the fact that he was hung out to dry by Frank and all the rest of it, and he was playing in a god-awful team that had no tactical awareness and were just conceding goals left, right and centre for a period of time. And he's kind of in that position again. But when do you... I don't remember pundits talking about Kepa having a bad game. Because he hasn't really had bad games. There's not... I can't think of loads of goals he should have saved. I mean, he's had poor moments. But yeah, he's a goalkeeper. That happens to goalkeepers. So I think, but that's the thing. Tell me somebody that's had a better season than Kepa then, other than Thiago. Because I saw you sort of pulling a face. You pulled a face when I said Kepa.
I was surprised that you said Kepa.
I'll be surprised if you can say anyone else. I mean, Fofana's looked good when he hasn't been injured. I like the look of Fofana.
When he hasn't been injured, I think Chile's done quite well.
But he
there's been games that I think Chile's done extremely well. And
but I think he's only started about 7 or 8 games this season.
I accept your point in terms of Potter, the fact he didn't have Kante. There were moments he didn't have Chilwell and James in.
A lot of moments
in the side as well.
They only started under Potter together 3 times. James and Chilwell. They both started the same game 3 times under Potter. And I don't necessarily think that Potter was necessarily the right man for the job. But at the moment, there isn't a right man for the job. But there isn't a right man. Who is then? Who could have done a better job than Potter? And why? Why could they have done a better job? We've had 3 managers this season, and under all of them, we've won. We've got like the same sort of points ratio, the same kind of goals per game ratio, which is basically like less than 1, and we pick up hardly any points.
Our goal return's been shocking this season. It's been bad this season. Back to your point, who I thought would have done a better job. The only one I could think of would have been controversial, but the only ones I could think of, Enrique, but he was still part of the Spain national team anyway because he left after the World Cup. My issue with Todd.
So wait a minute, you think that Luis Enrique coming in the second week of September without a pre-season, never been a manager over here before, doesn't really know the club, probably doesn't know a lot of the players. You think him coming in the second week of September, he would have done a better job than Grandpa?
Yes.
Why? Why wasn't Tuchel doing a better job? Why wasn't Tuchel doing a better job?
Tuchel had factors internally that he was. There was a point he wasn't getting a tune out of the players, and even when we've done shows, Warren, even last season, this thing between Tuchel and Todd, or Tuchel and Chelsea, I'm not going to put Todd in this. Tuchel and Chelsea. This thing between him and the club, this didn't happen when Todd took over at the end of the season. This happened way before. Way before. This happened around the League Cup final time.
Yeah, but he'd been there that whole time after.
It got to a point where Tuchel wasn't getting a tune out of the players, and the players stopped working for him. So at that point, Tuchel, it seemed, probably didn't want to be there, and his mannerisms, his character completely changed. There is no way that the Tuchel that won us the Champions League would have done what he did with Conte at the start of the season. I guarantee that. There was obviously issues, personal life was affecting him, and it obviously translated that onto the players. So he had to go. I have no issue with the fact that Tuchel had to go. But if you're a new owner and you've got a new toy, you've got a shiny new toy, you've got a shiny new business, you've purchased it, you want to make an impact, what do? You want to make an impact, you want to make a statement, you want people to keep fearing Chelsea Football Club. What do? You end up bringing in someone like Potter? No, you get the best. You get somebody that's going to mould a team into winners. Potter wasn't going to do that.
Which is exactly what Potter done at Brighton.
No. But Brighton, no. I'm talking winners as in trophy winners. I'm talking in world-class players that are going to the next. But if you take the amount that he improved Brighton, Brighton fans were booing him. Brighton fans were turning on Potter because there was a point where Brighton wasn't winning matches on a regular basis.
There was a point where Brighton had no striker. Yeah, there was a point where Brighton had no striker, and they couldn't convert the chances into goals. They created loads of chances. They played great football, and they always did. And the Brighton fans should be ashamed of themselves.
They were booing Potter after matches.
Yeah,
they were booing the Brighton.
It wasn't that they was.
They
was booing the Brighton team. I don't necessarily think they was booing Potter. I don't ever remember seeing excessive amounts of anti-Potter things on social media or anything from Brighton fans or anything like that. It was never like that. They was frustrated that the club as an entity hadn't gone out and bought a striker so that they could convert these chances into goals. And Potter's had exactly the same problem at Chelsea. What could Potter do? Potter came in and clearly he would have wanted we needed a striker.
Even your dog agrees
with me. Kane, Anyway, so I don't think like he clearly would have wanted a striker and he didn't get one. He got so Yao Felix and Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez, and these are all meant to be like great players and everything, but it's not what we wanted. It's not what we needed. We've got about 19 wingers. It's ridiculous. Like
and we've got another one on the way in the summer.
Yeah, and Cuckoo by the look of it. So like no, I don't blame Potter, and I don't think he can be judged on this 6 month period, this 6, 7, 8 months or whatever he was at Chelsea. I don't think he can be judged on that, and I think it's completely unfair to judge him on that. And what else I think is completely unfair is do you know what I haven't seen from like basically anyone all season, and I've never seen anyone supporting the team. All I've seen is this is shit, that person's shit, this is shit, and it has been shit, and people have the right to voice the fact that it's shit. But I don't see, well, that was really shit. But we've got this team on Saturday. Can't wait for that. Buzzing for it. Come on, the boys. I'll be there cheering you on. All I've seen is don't even know why I bother. Well, don't then. Do you know what? There's quite a good saying that I think that like sums up my emotions towards the lack of support that the team and the players have supported this season and the managers and everything. And it's, if you can't support us when we're shit, don't support us when we win. And I believe that yourself, Keith, have been quite guilty of being extraordinarily negative on a very consistent basis. And I think that you've referenced Graham Potter as different things, slagging him and patronising him. And I think it's completely unfair because Tuchel didn't do a better job. Lampard's not doing a better job. Nobody's doing a good job. Nobody. Mason Mount's been poor, really, really poor. Now I want Mason Mount to stay. I think he deserves to get his new contract. I'd love to see him stay. I think he's going to be he could be a very important figure for Chelsea, especially at a time like this, because he's kind of become our Mr. Chelsea kind of thing, so he's an important connection between the club and the fans and the academy and everything that, Chelsea fans want the club to stand for. Mason Mount's all about that, so I want him to stay. But he's been awful. He's been one of the worst players in the team like this season. His form has really, really suffered as a result of the circus that is Chelsea Football Club at the minute. So, but you can sit there and we can agree that we want Mount to stay, even though he's been awful. He's been worse than anyone else. But yet Graham Potter is a child who can't possibly hack it and all the rest of it. I think it's completely unfair, Keith. I think it's completely unfair because Tuchel didn't do a better job. Neither's Lampard. Bohe's done an awful job. All the players have done a bad job. The recruitment process, the sporting directors, the coaches, they've all done very, very bad jobs. I did very much like to see Ashley Cole on the pitch the other night, geeing up the Chelsea defenders before the Real Madrid game. That really got my...
Did they listen, though? Do you think they listened?
Well, they was very...
Did
I
you
think they
on their
played...
body language that they were taking in what Ashley was saying?
I think if you look at the performance, absolutely they did. We was excellent. Without a striker and therefore being unable to score a goal. I mean, yes, okay, so other players can score and stuff like that, but it's different. A striker... The reason you've got very good strikers and not so good strikers is because very good strikers can handle the pressure situations. And when you've got a striker that handles the pressure situations, that reduces the amount of pressure that's being placed on other goal scoring sources. So, your Reece Jameses, your Felix, your Havertz, the people that are meant to get 10, 12 goals a season, we're needing them to score 25 goals a season. There's too much pressure on them. And they're having to adjust their game and not necessarily play into the best of their ability. And so, yeah, goals should come from other sources, but without that striker. So if you look at us playing the European champions, the team that's been in the semi-final 9 out of the last 11 seasons and have won like 5 Champions Leagues in the last 8 years or whatever it is, it's ridiculous. A team of Camavinga and Valverde, not to mention Kroos and Modric and Benzema and Vinicius and Rodrigo, and Courtois he's had an excellent 12 months, an excellent 12, 18 months. I don't like the snaky CUNT, but And just quickly, we overran them. We overran them for a lot of the game. Yes, we run out of legs towards the end. Yes, James was suffering terribly with pain and injuries and everything and blah, blah. No, we didn't have a striker. But yeah, I think they listened to Ashley Cole. I think they went out there and they went out there with intensity, and the crowd was fantastic. The place was absolutely buzzing. I was sat here with my partner watching it, and obviously I had the telly turned up quite loud. And even my missus said, God, they're really loud tonight. Like the atmosphere was buzzing. It was a European night at Stamford Bridge, and it brought back all their memories and everything. And we had an identity for about an hour, and then we suffered a little bit. I think the players got tired, and Real Madrid are Real Madrid. Let's have it right. They're the European champions, and we played for 35 minutes over there with 10 men, and I thought we played very well. We had very good chances. Courtois made a couple of very good saves. Mount's chance near the end when I think it might have been Alaba come across and got a block, or it might have been Militao, I'm not sure. But we created really good chances in the Bernabeu, and we should have won at Stamford Bridge as well. We had some great opportunities and stuff, and so yeah, we actually played really, really well, but all I've seen is negativity about it. All I've seen is, and it's like, I don't get it. I don't get how people can't support the team in times like this. This is when they need us. This is what supporters are for. You're particularly guilty of being very, very negative and slagging the players off at the club and everything.
No, not all players. Not all players. Listen, I've
all
always...
the players deserve it. All the players deserve it. I think the buck stops with the players. I think there's an awful lot more going on. It's not
just the players. It's not just the players. It's not just the management. It's not just it's a combination of everything that is going wrong at this moment. Yes, I take it. Obviously, we've got a new owner, but not all clubs that have new owners have problems immediately afterwards. It's how it is run that is the issue. Certain players, in fact, a lot of players haven't performed. We've had a lot of turnover of players within the last 12 months. We've brought in players that, quite frankly, are not good enough, that are not going to challenge the big teams for top honours. We've brought in young players who I would love to see in the Chelsea shirt, week in, week out. Would love to see them perform and be nurtured in the right way, and how Chelsea have nurtured players and have produced world-class performances with world-class players. I'd love to see that. I'd love us to turn the young players into household names. I'd love us to have a manager with a bit of spunk, with a bit of guile, with a bit of expertise about it, a little bit of a Chelsea swagger about him, that you know what I'm talking about in terms of that Chelsea way. I'd love to see that. I haven't seen that all season. Tuchel, like I said, there was issues and he had to go. Potter, wrong place, wrong time. Listen, Lampard, 10 minutes on that Sunday when you texted me to say Potter's sacked and there was talk of Lampard already coming through. You texted me to say you was a bit wary of it. When I first heard Lampard was potentially going to come in, for 10 minutes I was excited. After that, I'm thinking, is he going to be the right guy? What if it doesn't work out? And so far it hasn't, because he hasn't won a game yet. The performances haven't really changed.
We scored a goal yet? Oh yeah, we scored one goal. Have we?
Yeah, we scored against Brighton. But that performance was poor. Really poor against Brighton. We made Brighton look like Real Madrid. We were shocking that game. Against Madrid, we did very well in the first half. And granted, if Kante got his shooting boots on, for me, I thought that was a good save, personally. Where I was, I thought Courtois got down well, and I thought that was a good save. But if those chances go in, it's a whole different game.
Well, yeah.
But as I said,
we could have been in the semi-final of the Champions League.
I agree with you. The atmosphere against Real Madrid was good, and it seemed like the old Chelsea atmosphere from Champions League season.
And what a difference it made. What a difference it made. It was probably our best performance of the season. I know we lost. I know it wasn't the result we wanted. And I'm not I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not a Tottenham fan. I don't accept defeat like it's success. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, we've done so well though. Like, it's unacceptable. I want to win things. Like, I get it. Right. And I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say that I'm going to accept mediocrity. I'm not saying that, but I just think that our best performance of the season was the one game where the fans were truly behind the team, and I don't think the fans ever got behind Potter 100%. And do I think he was the right man for the job? I'd like to put this out there. No, I don't. Right. So I actually agree with part of what these Chelsea fans that I'm sort of saying have done, a bad job supporting the club. I agree that he wasn't the right man for the job. I agree with them about that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we agree with. It doesn't matter. You don't get to pick and choose how you support a football club. If you support a football club, you just support them. And I think that if the fans had 100% behind Potter, do I think it would have changed things? Do I think we would have been third in the league and in the FA Cup semi-finals and still in the Champions League and having won the League Cup? No, I don't think that was going to happen. But it wouldn't have been as bad as it's been. It wouldn't have been as bad as it's been. And I think Chelsea supporters who attend regularly and all of the social media negativity and everything, I think it contributes to the situation.
I do agree to your point in terms of the fans and in terms of their reaction.
Especially at the games.
Well, I was going to say, as soon as Real Madrid scored that first goal, fans were leaving. As soon as they scored the second goal, there was hundreds and hundreds.
I was going to say, the thing is, I could understand when Real Madrid scored the first goal, I can completely understand that it's a massive, massive anticlimax, right? Because we had, like you said, we'd had these chances and the atmosphere was fantastic and everybody's thinking if we get this one goal. I can understand that the crowd was deflated after that goal. Right? I don't, necessarily think that they was bad supporters for that. But what would have been nice is, like you say, people should have stayed till the end. And I think that the players deserve to be applauded. And I think the fans deserve to have some appreciation back from the players as well after the game, by going around, clapping and giving a thumbs up or whatever. It wouldn't have taken.
Well, there wasn't many after Brighton and Madrid. A lot of them did go into the dressing room immediately after.
Well, the Brighton game was obviously awful.
Brighton game was bad. I stayed to the end. All games now, I've stayed till the end. For me, I've done that for years, but the one against Aston Villa for me was a real eye-opener because as soon as the second goal went in, there was boos ringing out, chants to Potter, you don't know what you're doing. That game signified his end. But it was the reaction to the crowd.
That's awful. I think that's awful.
To the crowd. It was the reaction to the crowd. As soon as the second goal went in, we still had half an hour to play. And there's fans leaving. There's fans going. And by the time the final was
not support. I don't think that's supporting the club. Like I could now the thing is, it's different if there's a planned walkout or a planned arriving to the game late or a planned I've bought a ticket but I'm not going to go. We've seen this with Everton and Newcastle, and we've seen it with other clubs in recent years.
Man United as well. We've
Manchester United. Yeah, absolutely. See now that as a planned protest because they say, we really don't think that Potter's the right man. We don't like the way the club's being run. We don't like this. We don't like that. Blah blah. That we had organised protests against Rafael Benitez all them years ago and everything. So that is different, right? That is you putting your hand up and saying, I'm a supporter of the club. I dedicate my time and my financial means to it, and I travel up and down the country and I go to Stamford Bridge and everything, blah blah. And I'm not happy with the way the club is being run, right? Or whatever the situation may be that they're not happy with. I can accept that. But you do your protest, you arrive to the game late, you do whatever you're going to do, you walk in the 16th minute, whatever you're going to do, and then you support the club. Because you say, right, I don't like how it is, but I love the club and I'm going to support the club. I don't see that happening at Chelsea. I'm very embarrassed by Chelsea fans, especially in the last 20 years. We've had this conversation many a time on the podcast. And it's something that is obviously not going to really change unless we get relegated a couple of times, saying get rid of them all, which I think would be absolutely brilliant. But just to get rid of all the plastic glory hunters. I don't see the support. I don't see enough support from the fans, and I think they have to accept a certain amount of responsibility for it.
Would you then say, in terms of the supporters, because I agree, the atmosphere, not just this season, going back to last year or the year before that, the atmosphere isn't the same anymore.
That's
now,
right.
I'm not buying the fact that, there's too many tourists there. I'm not buying the fact that
I am because I am and
not the
I am
sole
and I'm
not the
not.
sole reason. Not the
I
sole
was going to
reason.
say I
I
am and
really
I'm
don't
not.
buy
The
that as a
thing,
sole reason.
but the thing is, it essentially is the sole reason because it's not just the amount of and we should probably like clarify by tourists we don't mean people not from this country. We mean people that are tourists to Chelsea, as in they are not proper born and bred passionate Chelsea fans like the old school core of Chelsea fans are. We don't obviously mean foreign nationals. We're not being discriminatory against anyone by calling them.
No. I'm talking
No,
in
no. I
terms
just
of,
no. We
especially
know
against
what
Real
we mean.
Madrid.
We know what we mean,
Especially
but we
against
want
Real
to
Madrid, there
clarify.
was
But
many supporters there that have
but
never been to a
what you've got
Chelsea
to
game
remember,
before in their
yeah. Well,
lives.
this is the thing. Well, this is the thing. What you've got to remember is that Man United people would say, well, why is Old Trafford can still be really noisy. So sorry if you experience a little bit of an overlap or a crossover in this part of the conversation. Myself and Keith were having some technical issues there, so apologies if there's a little break there and you get a little bit confused. But it was our issue, our end. You're not having technical issues, we are. But no, the atmosphere can still be terrific at places like Man United, where you would expect them to be a lot of like glory hunters and stuff like you find at Chelsea as well, plastics as I call them. But they've got a big enough ground that the hardcore fans can still go every single week. Chelsea are not in that position. Chelsea has gone so corporate, and we're not going to get into the whole trying to get ticket things because we'll be here for days.
God, we'd be here for.
But you can't.
Next season.
Unless you're corporate get preference for everything, even away games. So we haven't got enough space to be able to fit all of the corporate in, as well as all of the hardcore supporters. So it is. So I would say that the model of the club and the corporate side of it is keeping proper Chelsea fans away from the ground. And I think that what you're left with is a lot of the plastics, and they're the ones that are predominantly the least supportive of the club, historically speaking and traditionally speaking from experience. That set of fans are less supportive when the club is not just winning. And I think that's a massive contributing factor to the state of the club and to the state of the team at the minute. I think that we could have done a lot better. I mean, we've had seasons not dissimilar to this, and we've won trophies. So I don't know what else to say, really, about the. I agree with those fans that you was talking about when you was, what led to this conversation. You was talking about an older generation of fans saying this and saying that. Yeah, they can't get to the game no more to even support the team. So it's a sad state of affairs.
It is concerning. Let's talk about, because I do want to get onto this topic before we do finally get out of here and my laptop doesn't start playing games on me again. The alleged candidates, Warren, that are looking at this job. We've got Mauricio Pochettino. We've got Vincent Kompany, which was a huge shock when it was announced yesterday, and a mystery guy who has alleged got links with Chelsea, but whether that's true.
Well, let's just say. Let's say this.
Let's just
I was going to say. Well, no, I was going to say. Why don't we look at the two that we know, which is Kompany and Pochettino, and then let's say that the third man is a wild card, and it could be anybody that you wanted it to be, and anybody that I wanted it to be. Who would I pick? Who would you pick? Because regardless of the third option, it could be Mourinho or Pep Guardiola.
Who would you have? If it was mystery, who would you have as the first
if it was mystery, I'd have Carlo Ancelotti.
Right.
However, I want Poch.
Okay.
I think
Can you explain to me and the listeners why you would want Poch as the next Chelsea manager?
Well, I think that he showed that his recruitment at Tottenham under difficult circumstances with Levy as the owner. I think that he showed that the recruitment side of things, he had it pretty good. I think that he didn't have a great deal of money or a great squad. I think that we could have a great squad with the players that we have and the money that we can generate from getting rid of the dead weight and the fat around the edges and, trimming the squad down a little bit. think that we could, get by a striker, maybe, maybe two. But we could get a striker or two, perhaps. And I think that he'd done an excellent job at Tottenham. Obviously, he didn't win anything, but you can't blame Pochettino for that. That's Tottenham. Like, that's in their DNA. Like, that's just who they are. So you can't blame him for that. I think that he helped Harry Kane develop an awful lot. I think that people like Kieran Trippier have gone on to have great careers, and their careers really took off under Poch. I think that if you look at obviously like Son and people like that, I think Pochettino done a good job at Tottenham. Even Lucas Moura. I mean, he was never like explosive or anything, but he was better than Pulisic or Ziyech has been at Chelsea, for example. Do you know what I mean? So I just think that, and I think that he was very unfairly treated at Paris Saint-Germain because he got sacked because he couldn't do the one thing that nobody could do at Paris Saint-Germain, which is win the Champions League, whoever's in charge. So I think that Paris Saint-Germain seemed to be a team in a lot more harmony under Pochettino than they have anyone else since. In terms of all you hear about is Neymar and Messi and Mbappe all rowing and arguing, and they're going to do this and they're going to blah, 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 all the rest of it. Didn't hear that so much under Pochettino. They seem to knuckle down a little bit. And what I also quite like is the fact that Pochettino won't just rush into any job. He won't just take a job. Like, he's been offered it, whether he's been offered or not, he's certainly been spoken to about the Chelsea job before. He's been spoken to about the Man United job. He's probably been spoken to about international jobs. He was probably spoken to for Barcelona roles. He was probably considered. They brought Tuchel in pretty quickly, which seemed like they already had a plan, but maybe 2 weeks Bayern Munich, I mean. But I bet Bayern Munich, when they were saying, right, we're going to get rid of this guy, we want to bring Tuchel in. I bet at some point somebody said, what about Pochettino? I said, well, it might be worth having a think about him, and so that he's had options and he hasn't rushed into anything. He seems like quite a pragmatic manager. He seemed to be quite a man manager. He always defended his players. He seemed to love his players and support his players, and never really had massive falling outs or anything, only really with the owners, but that's because they're divs at Tottenham. So for those reasons, yeah, and he's done it in England before. He's got experience in the league. He can speak the language. He understands the intensity. He understands the media. He understands the atmospheres. He understands the rivalries. He gets it. So yeah, Pochettino would be my pick. He certainly wouldn't be company. Too unproven. Like that's. I mean,
it'll be another Potter.
Well, I mean, yeah, somebody that.
Yeah.
With the right. The thing is, you're gonna get patience at Brighton and Burnley and Crystal Palace and teams like you're gonna get patience there. You're not gonna get patience at the top level, which you should do, because if you think that Liverpool are having an awful season and they had an awful season the season after they won it, and they had an awful, pretty bad season first season under Klopp as well. It wasn't great. But they've kept him there for 7 years, and look what he's done in the other 4 or 5 seasons, So there's no reason that a manager can't come and do that at Chelsea. And I think that if that's what they're going to try and do, I think Pochettino is the right choice.
Interesting. I think there's, from what I gathered and from the take from yesterday, there are a lot of Chelsea fans that not happy, and
Well, because of the Tottenham links, right? These are not real. These are not real Chelsea supporters, because real Chelsea supporters. This is the thing, right? Real Chelsea supporters, right? When they think about the rivalry of Tottenham and they think about this situation, what they would think is, imagine he come here and won a trophy and how we could rub it in their faces.
Well, yeah, that's one.
Like, do you know what I mean? And this is another thing. Would you not want Harry Kane in your team?
I would, but I wouldn't want to spend stupid money. But I know.
That's fair enough. But that's not the point that I'm making. It's nothing to do with how much it'd cost. What I mean is that
I don't
these
think
Chelsea
Kane
fans,
would come to us.
but these Chelsea fans that are saying, we don't want Poch because he's got Tottenham links. What? So you're telling me you wouldn't want Harry Kane, or you wouldn't want Heung-min Son?
Kane won't come to us.
No, but that's not the. But this is Keith. You're missing the point that I'm making completely. I'm saying that these Chelsea fans that are saying we don't want Poch because of Tottenham links are fucking idiots. Because are you telling me that as a fan of the club, you don't want Pochettino in charge because of his Tottenham links. So by the same notion, you wouldn't want Harry Kane at centre forward, or you wouldn't want Heung-min Son in there, or do you know what I mean? You wouldn't want one or two of their other like very good players. Of course you would. Of course you would. Like it'd be mental not to. Why would you not want somebody who Harry Kane is every bit as good as Erling Haaland, right? If he was to play in the Man City team and he was told, don't come deep, don't link up the play, don't try and win headers, don't try and help out defending, just press at the top and go and get goals, he would have scored 30 goals this season for Man City. I think he's every bit as good as Erling Haaland. In fact, I think he's better because he actually offers an awful lot more to the team. To have Erling Haaland in your team, you need to be Man City. You need to have £700-800 million worth of player around him doing everything else and a little bit more because he's doing that much less. Harry Kane offers an awful lot more to the team. Excuse me. They're both just as bad at penalties, though. Absolutely. I think Harry Kane's every bit as good as Erling Haaland. So why wouldn't you want Harry? I'd love Chelsea to sign Harry Kane. I really would. Imagine signing Harry Kane and then he banged in a load of goals and won the league in his first season at Chelsea. Can you imagine the songs and the banter? Tottenham fans they just never come out ever again. It would be hilarious and it'd be so typical and it'd be so Spursy. So yeah, I want Poch. Why not? Get Poch for the banter. Why not? We're a circus anyway, so just get him for the bants.
There's one way to look at it.
What do you think? Do you want him in charge?
I think he'll get it. He wouldn't be my choice.
Who would be?
Before Wednesday, and I spoke to our co-host Mark about this. Before the game, I would want Jose back. After, no. I don't think Jose and Todd would get on. I think there'd be a confrontational clash, and I think Jose would probably look at the situation and go, no. Similar to what Nagelsmann's done. Nagelsmann's looked at the situation, he's gone, nah.
Yeah,
I think that,
and that's a worry. Because even 5 years ago, I mean, if you think that whether people think they're good managers or if there's better managers or anything, blah blah. But if you look in the last sort of like 10 or so years, we've had the Ancelottis, we've had the Contes, we've had the Mourinhos, and excuse me. And if there was a big player, like for example, I don't think that we could ever be considered to be in the race with Jude Bellingham, right? That take the finances away from it, right? Take the finances away from it, right? Whether we could or couldn't afford him is irrelevant. He won't want to join us.
Agreed.
He doesn't want to join Chelsea at the minute. Like I don't think he wants to join Liverpool at the minute because they've had a slightly sloppy season. Like there's no chance he can come to Chelsea. and that's a worry. Like attracting managers and players and everything like that. That's a little bit of a worry moving forward, which is why this period needs to. We at the very very least need to stabilise really well. In the coming pre-season and in the next recruitment phase and at the start of next season, we need to stabilise the club a lot. I'd have Ancelotti back. Like I say, Ancelotti I think could come in and solve a lot of problems because I think that he knows the game so well. He knows clubs so well. He knows big European clubs so well. And he's one of them managers that doesn't really seem to argue with owners like you say that Jose does and everything. There might be a bit of a clash
also, just to top your point, I think he's probably got a point to prove with Chelsea as well. I think he's got unfinished business with the club.
Yeah, absolutely. I do as well.
But then that's if Real Madrid are going to get rid of him. If Real Madrid ain't going to get rid of him, he ain't going to jump from Real Madrid to Chelsea.
The thing is, but Real Madrid are quite notorious for...
there's talk of them changing Carlo at the end of the season. There was talk of Arteta going, which I thought was pissing humorous. But the other man that is partly linked with the job, whether this is due to Italian media or whatnot, did actually get my brain thinking on this, was Conte.
Yeah, nah.
Again, quite confrontational with owners. I don't think he and Todd would get on, but my goodness, what a contract. How, as you said, you mentioned about Spursy. How Spursy would that be if Conte came in and we ended up winning a trophy? Conte, I can't see it. The reason that it could happen is because
look, Conte's not silly. Conte will remember that when he won the league at Chelsea, we had no European football.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be the case next season, that we will have no European
Different
football.
team, though, to be fair. We had more leaders back then than what we have now. But I get your point. But I do, looking at it from the inside, Conte's going to go back to Italy. I mean, he's in Italy now. So he's just waiting for the right job, whether Roma comes up or Inter Milan
he'll take
again.
time. I think he'll take time out. What with his health issues that he's had this year,
He's had a tough 12 months.
It was good. It was good to see him back on the touchline and fit and healthy and raring
He's
to
had a
go
tough
and everything.
12 months.
It was good to see him back for sure. It's even better to see him leave Tottenham.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think he'll go back to Italy. I think he'll probably end up taking over one of the Milan teams or something.
Yeah. What would you say to those? Because we're going to put a bow on this now. We're going to try and wrap this up. What would you say to the supporters? And you mentioned this briefly earlier. The ones that I've heard from and ones that people have told me about, that they would be willing to sell their season tickets or not go again, considering how bad the circus is at Chelsea Football Club, and especially if Poch or company comes in. Do you think that they've got a right to their... Obviously, they've got a right to their opinion. Do you believe that there's any valid reasons for them not to go? Or do you think that it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and, as you said, support the club?
Well, I believe that there are two types of people that would say that. You have people that are not loyal and not passionate to the club and haven't supported the club through hard times before, and I would say that they're plastics and they can fuck off. Then you've got the group of people that are from the more diehard set of supporters and have been going for not just a number of years, because that's not the only factor in what makes you a loyal football supporter. But for example, people that have been going for many years, maybe people from the generation before ours, and I think that their decision to maybe give up their season tickets or not go anymore isn't just to do with the football or just to do with how the clubs run. I think a huge contributing factor is the supporters around them. I think they've become very disillusioned and very disconnected, and even that group of Chelsea supporters that I consider myself to be in have become very disconnected and very disillusioned with the supporters around them. And I think that that's a huge contributing factor. So, of course, as you said, they have a right to their opinion. But I think you have those two categories of people. So, like I said, my reaction to that, my opinion on that is the first set of supporters that are not loyal and have never seen us through shit times, they can fuck off. The ones that are making the decision that have been there through thick and thin, I can understand their decision to do it because I think they've become disconnected even with the supporters around them. I felt very disconnected. When I went to Newcastle away with you, I felt very, very disconnected from a lot of Chelsea fans. Now, obviously, I know a lot of the Chelsea fans there, and a lot of them, are good lads, and I've seen them up and down the country for years and years. But even in the pub beforehand, there was small little groups of that kind of Chelsea supporter there, but most of them were just they were just tourists. They just didn't look right. They just didn't look right. They didn't sound right. Yeah, they felt. Yeah, you could see that they felt awkward and felt out of place, and it was all very forced, and it was all very. Oh, I saw them sing this song on YouTube. I'm going to start this song, and I could just feel it, and it was. It wasn't really eye-opening because I knew what it was like and I knew that it had been building up for a while, but it was the first time I felt like it was more than half of them were like that. Like usually there was, like I said, like there's groups and pockets of good Chelsea, like what I consider good Chelsea fans about the place, but the rest of them are the plastics. But it used to be the other way, especially at away games. You'd have 3,000 somewhere, and you'd have 500 of the tourists there, but 2,500 of them would have been Chelsea, proper die-hard Chelsea through and through. And I think that it's the other way around now, and that's the most upsetting thing about everything to do with Chelsea. I can handle it. Like I said, Keith, if Chelsea were to get relegated, I'd go on a Championship and a League One tour. I'd go to all the grounds that I've never had the privilege of going to and see Chelsea at places I'd never seen them before, and see a load of academy come through and re-establish our identity and get rid of all the supporters who annoy me and everything and blah blah. Yeah, like I wouldn't mind that happening because, like I
Well,
say, the most upsetting thing is how disconnected I am from the club.
just to top off your point, obviously this was after the Real Madrid game. Brentford were playing next week in a game where Brentford obviously needed the points for Europe as well, so they've probably got more for the game
Riding
than what
on
we
it
have.
in that sense, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this season, the ticket exchange, and for those of you that know what I'm about to say in terms of the ticket exchange, will know their frustrations and my frustrations with it. All season, there's been no tickets for any games on that ticket exchange. Even years ago, you used to get certain snippets, used to get quite a few.
Especially closer to the game.
Now, on Wednesday, I took my daughter to swimming, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, he's after a Brentford ticket. You able to help with your connections?" I said, "Well, let me have a look on, the site." And somebody told me that this was announced on Twitter that they did a screenshot of the tickets that are available for the game against Brentford. There were hundreds. All over the pit, all over the ground. There was loads in the Matthew Harding lower, loads in the Matthew Harding upper, loads in the East upper, loads in the West lower, loads, absolute loads, basically. And I said to the guy, "Yep, you're probably best." He said, "Don't use Twitter or don't use the WhatsApp groups. Just go on Chelsea's website. Go on the ticket exchange." Oh, well, every time I use it, it's sold out. No, try it. And he did. He got one. I got one. I got front row East upper, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, nice. Good view from there.
Seat 1, row 1, East upper, which I'm looking forward to, and that's next Wednesday. But there were loads, and I think that's where this has now got to the point where people don't want to go, where people are happy to sell their tickets on, probably between now and the end of the season, because whether it's they've given up, or I don't think they've given up on the club. I just think they've just given up on this season, and they've just pretty much tired of pardon me French, the shit that's come on leaps and bounds this season with this club, even from Tottenham at home to Leeds away, Southampton away, all the way back in August to now. It's been one constant shit show after another. And there are people that are tired, and I understand that. But I'm not going to give up on my team. I'm not going to leave 20 minutes early being 2-0 down or half an hour early after losing to the European champions. I'm certainly not going to do that. I'm going to clap the players that are clapping us back for thanking us to stay there till the end. But I'm going to appreciate the fact that at the end of the day, they are human. At the end of the day, their confidence is shot, but they're still putting in a shift. We've got a 39-year-old centre-back who's technically still our best centre-back. That's how we are in a shit show at the moment. He's still producing the goods, where people like myself and others that would love to be at Chelsea
if we
can't
put the
do
effort
that.
in, if we put the same effort in against Brentford as we did against Real Madrid, then we could still, we'd tear Brentford apart, I think, because I think we are still just a lot better. I think we are just a lot better. But I think that.
Would you say, just to sum it up, Warren, because again, we could be here for hours talking about this, but just to sum it up, do you believe, and again, you and I have known each other for a while now, and you've been on the show many, many times, and we've had disputes, we've had rants galore about Chelsea. But in terms of this summer, we've discussed about different summers in the past. Would you say this one in particular is probably one of the most key summers this club will ever likely to have?
I think it will. I think it will mould how we are for 10 years.
Yeah, I agree.
The next two seasons will define how we are for 10 years and where we're going to be at, and whether we have to spend 2 or 3 years completely rebuilding. Like almost, you have to look at what Arsenal have done. You have to look at the way that Newcastle are approaching it. You have to look at the way that Liverpool,
they weren't always top four.
You have to look at the way that Liverpool have rebranded themselves. You have to look at the way that Man City have started going about their business, being very shrewd in the transfer market. I know that they have a £1 billion squad and they spent £1 billion under Pep, but in the last 2 or 3 years, they spent hardly anything compared to the money they've brought in, really. So you've got to look at these things, and they take 2 or 3 years to put in place, and then it can take another year or two to start really seeing the results. So you're talking about, if something doesn't work for the next 2 years, and then we have to completely rebrand and completely remodel from the bottom up, then you're talking about it being 7 years until we can start seeing 7-8 years until we can start expecting consistent success again. And that's fine, as long as we know that's what's happening, as long as that's clear that's what's happening, and as long as there's constant progress. If we finish 7th one season, then the next season we must finish 5th, and then we must get into the Champions League, then we must stay in the Champions League, and then we must start winning trophies, and then after a little while is when we can start pushing for the league. But there has to be clear evidence of it, because at the moment all we're doing is going backwards, and that's kind of where we're at the minute. We're going backwards.
Yeah.
So big future ahead.
Huge future ahead for Chelsea. Quite a good future for the Blue Day podcast coming up. Warren, can you believe it'll be 150 episodes next week? And we've got a very special guest that I'm going to announce start of next week who it's going to be. But 150 episodes coming up.
Well, I mean,
quite special. Considering you was part of the first one, you was there from day one as well.
Yes, I was. I was there in one way or another, probably taking a piss out of Poyet or
Sutton, your friend Chris Sutton.
or Andy Townsend, my good friend there. But no, first of all, huge congratulations. The podcast has come on so well. And obviously, I've spoken to you before. I mentioned the podcast before about the guests and the previous co-hosts and the future co-hosts and everybody that's going to be coming on the show. I know the people that you've sort of obviously got lined up and that you're hoping to get in the near future as well. 150. I mean, here's to the next 150, I guess.
Of course, yeah.
Let's see. Maybe we would have to do a 300th episode review or something.
I hope so.
But maybe a 200, 250, 300. There's going to be a lot of milestones in the future, and I look forward to. As a fan of the podcast, I look forward to it myself.
And for those that are interested in listening to our previous player episodes, the recent one we've had was Gareth Hall. I urge you to listen to that one because it is great to listen to the guys that were there, Chelsea, before all the money was there. But there's good stories there about Ken Bates and some of Gareth Hall's teammates as well. So I urge you to listen to that one. We've got a plethora of former Chelsea guys that have been on the show, the likes of Eddie Newton, Sean Wright-Phillips, Marco Ambrosio, remember him, Gary Chivers, Gary Stanley, Ron Harris
Chopper Harris.
Well. Who can forget Chopper Harris as well?
Well, our first player interview.
Yes.
The very first player interview, the man who's played more games for Chelsea than anybody else.
And it was a fantastic occasion to have him on the show. And it's been lovely to have you guys on the show as well, listening to us. We hope you've enjoyed this week, whereby Chelsea are not playing. But good luck to the women who are playing in the Champions League. Good luck to them.
Yeah, good luck
to Emma and the girls.
Do the cheaters. Hopefully they haven't paid the ref.
No more Andrews Frisk. But we hope you've enjoyed this week. We will be back soon for our 150th episode. Remember to find us on Twitter at the Blue Day Pod. Find us on Instagram at the Blue Day Podcast, and find us on Facebook as well. I've been Keith Lawrence. Stay safe and carefree.